Anyway, we are live. It turns out we were just trying to sort out where my mic was going to come from. But yeah, thank you for coming back to IoT Live. We've got again with us. We've got the fabulous Benjamin Cabe with us to talk about the stuff that we're going to do, and we've also got Cliff Agius as well. So again, for people that haven't joined us before, Benjamin, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
No. So, welcome everyone. So yeah, I'm Benjamin Cabe. I'm part of the Azure IoT team at Microsoft, and I spend a lot of time working on cool hardware and software, often open source software actually, and figuring out how it can be used in combination with the Azure IoT portfolio and ecosystem. And over the past few weeks and months, I guess, I've been spending quite some time tinkering with the with stuff coming from the LoRa and LoRaWAN ecosystem, like wireless, low power sensors kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that's what we've been hacking on for the past 2 or 3 episodes of this series. And yeah, looking forward to today's session and doing a bit more in the like integration with the LoRaWAN, between the LoRaWAN sensors and the digital twins environment.
Good stuff. And this is, I mean, we'll come back to this, but obviously we had a little hiccup, which is why we missed last week's show, but we'll come back to that shortly. Cliff?
I'm not sure if it's anyone else, but I'm getting very kind of crackly and grainy audio from you, Pete. Yeah, I got Benjamin's perfect, but you're crackly and grainy.
In Twitch or just in OBS?
I'm not listening to Twitch. I mean, audio in OBS, but Benjamin come across perfectly, but you're very crackly and grainy. I'm not sure if anyone else can hear that.
Yeah, I'll be out of sync for you instead, and then my audio will probably be better. Let's do that.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, I'll be out of sync, but it's fine. It's fine. I mean, my audio should be direct to OBS and out to Twitch, so I think it's probably just an OBS Ninja issue. My PC, I've got Surface Book 3, and I've got almost the best one. I've not got the business RTX version, but it really, I mean, you stick OBS Ninja on there and it just slows the whole thing down. So I've started putting the camera through my phone for Benjamin and Cliff to be able to see me at least. And I'm out of sync because the audio is coming through the PC still. So anyway, that's what all that's about. But anyway, Cliff, do you want to explain who you are?
Yeah, my name's Cliff Agius, and I'm a freelance .NET Xamarin and IoT developer, Microsoft MVP. And when I'm not doing that, you'll find me at 40,000 feet flying planes around the world. Back from LA yesterday, off to Dallas on Saturday. So yeah, get around a bit. Yeah, and I'm here to learn a bit more about this LoRaWAN as well, because it's the first 2 episodes have been really exciting. So nice to see it all come together now.
Yeah, that's good. Well, yeah, and on that, I think Benjamin had a problem with his resources. We were using Benjamin's resources for the last couple of weeks, but I think there was a hiccup with Benjamin's resources, and we've had to I've had to reprovision everything on my infrastructure and get everything set back up again. So it is entirely possible we'll spend a little bit of time trying to still fix whatever I've managed to miss off. But if I switch across to my screen sharing, let's just refresh this and put that on the screen. Then you should be able to see my screen sharing. That one. There we go. So I've got...
Wrong button.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, now it's the right one. I've got ThingStack set up of the infrastructure that Benjamin has got on his GitHub just here. There's a big blue deploy to Azure button, and I essentially went through that. And that deployed a bunch of resources that are difficult to actually see unless I minimize that. Essentials out of the way. There we are. So there's a bunch of resources that spins up there, including a virtual machine, which has got the actual server on there. And that's what you can see here. So this ThingStack open source software is running on the VM. And I've attached a gateway to that, which is what you're looking at here. So this is my LoRaWAN gateway that I got from the Connected Things store, and we just went into that gateway and pointed it at that virtual machine address, the DNS for that. The settings save. You have to reboot the whole thing by unplugging it and plugging it back in again, oddly. I'm not quite sure why that is, but once that takes, then that starts communicating. And then you have an application that you create. And you see Edge is doing that wonderful thing of sleeping all of my tabs. So that means that when I come to them after a little bit, they need refreshing. And that's refreshing now. To date.
You can turn that off.
Yeah, it's good for the most part, unless you're streaming. So this is the app. Oh, come on. It was there a second ago. Live streaming. There we are. So this is.
So this means that because this thing stack is hosting a VM on your Azure, it means that all the data that goes between your sensors and your gateways are private to your network. Unlike if you went to the public thing stack, then it's not. It's then public data, isn't it? Because it's out there. So this means that you can keep, if you're working on a building management system, for example, it can be your building management, and no one else can see that data.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
Yep.
the data between the LoRaWAN sensor and the gateway itself is exposed, but there's an app key that you use, that private, that you use to then link the two things together. Now, this is actually something I came up against because I'd provisioned my gateway and then provisioned these two sensors, and we'd linked them to Benjamin's things stack on his infrastructure, and when it does that, it joins, and those two things then are linked, and you can't then link them to something else while the sensor thinks it's still linked to that thing stack instance. So I had to take the battery out, which is lucky because I'm pretty sure that your Draguino ones, Benjamin, don't have a battery that you can take out and put back in again. Isn't it a throwaway device once it's run out of battery?
Yeah, that's correct. But they do have a button that can be used for forcing the sensors to rejoin the network. But yeah, what you did, like, it was an accident, but the steps you had to go through, and that was actually an interesting exercise, because my server just died. My LoRaWAN network server just died, and you had sensors connected to it. And then essentially what you did is recreate your own server and then try to get the sensors to communicate to the server. And you would think that by just provisioning the sensors and putting all the credentials, it would work. Except that it would be too easy. Like, that would be almost what anyone trying to steal your sensors could do. Like, if they managed to get access to some of your secrets, they could actually do that, right? Try and provision the credentials in their own server. But there is something that's interesting in the sort of the workflow of how a LoRaWAN sensor connects to a network. And I think we talked about that either in the first or in the second session. There is a sort of a handshake process where the sensors initially, and this is not meant to happen often, and often it actually meant to happen only once in the lifetime of the device, they quote unquote join the server. They do this round trip where they share, like they ask the server for a session key that is going to be the only key that they're going to use for their entire lifetime. And so your sensors, they had joined my server once, and then they were using their session key to communicate from that point, right? And did we lose Pete?
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. So yeah, well, so long story short, your sensors, they were still trying to use an old session key, and the only way for them to join your new network server was to force them to redo this join handshake thingy, which typically is not necessarily something that's easy to do. Like, for you, it kind of was because you had physical access to the sensors, and you could do this like, let's remove the battery and let's reconnect the sensors. But in real life scenarios, like the forcing the devices to join the network is not something that is necessarily easy, and that's on purpose, because when the device is joining a new server, it's kind of vulnerable for a while. Like at least it's doing something that's that may be exposing secrets, or that may be compromised, and you don't want that to happen too often. And you want to make sure that whenever a device is joining a new network, you're essentially in control of what's happening, and it's usually a manual intervention, essentially.
Yeah, I think there's a downlink command that you can send to the device. I noticed when I was searching around on how to actually do this.
Yeah, except for sending a downlink, you need to be able to have access to the existing old network that the device is on.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, I suppose that the idea would be that you'd sell it and you'd deprovision it from your service, and then you'd move it on, or whatever, switch to a different, more stronger gateway, or whichever one you wanted to do. But you're right. Yeah, if something like this happens.
Your audio is choppy again.
Oh, so that didn't work then. There we go. So I'm back on there again. I just noticed that it was taking quite a while for you to respond. So I didn't know if I was really, really laggy or what. But anyway, we'll see. So obviously without your server being there, it was impossible to actually send that downlink. And the only way to do it was to take the battery out, and I had to put a 100 ohm resistor across the battery terminals to short out there's like a supercapacitor inside it that keeps it charged in case the battery needs changing. It doesn't want to have to deprovision and reprovision every time you change the battery. So yeah, that's where we got to. So I mean, I set up the new infrastructure through that link that is on Benjamin's GitHub there, and then that created all of this infrastructure, and then I was able to then spin this up in here, and then add a gateway, and then add an application, this home monitoring one, which is the same name as what we had before. And then in there, then you can add end devices. And so I've added a motion sensor and a temperature and humidity sensor. And then to do that, you need 3 pieces of information. You need the app EUI and the dev EUI, and also this app key. And I think the app EUI is the same between both of these. I think that's probably like a manufacturer EUI. Right, Benjamin would probably be able to answer that. And then the dev EUI is the one that's specific to the device, and then the app key is your secret. And those, use all of those to create this. Is it the MIC or something like that? The defining, this is how I know that I'm talking to the right device. So that's how that's working. So after that, we got all of that working. I was between 2 different shows, and then we spun up some digital twins stuff. So over here, I've got Digital Twins Explorer running. So you spin that up here from the console. Before you do that, you need to log in, and you need to give your Digital Twins access, your account, Digital Twins access, owner access to that, so that you can actually then connect the 2 things together. So that's my Azure Digital Twins URL, which you can grab from here. That's that host name there. And obviously you need to have permissions access and be logged in, because we don't want all in the sundry to be able to then connect to this Digital Twins instance. That needs to be gated in some way. And then we uploaded a bunch of models, which were from Benjamin's GitHub. And these are the models for that. So these describe that space, or the capabilities of a device. And in this case, look, we've got a mix of both. So we've got a building and then a room that sits within it. And then we've got Benjamin's Draguino LHT65, which is your temperature sensor, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Cool. Was there a big delay? Cliff, are you
So
seeing...
essentially what...
Are you seeing the same delay in audio? Sorry.
So since there's delay, I will just keep talking.
You're seeing the same?
I'm seeing a bit of a delay in audios.
Is it really, really bad? Like a second or 2 or something? Yes.
It's a second or 2, yeah.
There we go. Is that any better? No. What about that? Is that any better?
It seems to be, but then
Could be, yeah.
Okay. Right,
Yeah.
yep. I've just switched mics. It was through this mic, so I don't know why it's taking so long. Anyway, we can't go through the whole episode with a second or two delay. that would be really bad. Just like it was. Apologies, Benjamin. Please do carry on.
Yeah, no worries. And I wasn't sure whether it was on my side or on yours. So yeah, so we've imported just a few entities that essentially like form an ontology for what is going to be our digital environment. And so we have we want to be able to model how eventually all the sensors, like the motion sensor and the humidity sensor and so on, how like by themselves, of course, they send data, but it's like not that useful to know that, yeah, sure, it's 80% humidity somewhere. So we want to be able to map that to sort of the real world and or to other entities that we may have in our IT infrastructure. So we've modeled those, and maybe you can have a quick look with the info icon. You can show us maybe what the building is. And the essentially a building is not much, right? Is yeah, so like, I mean, a building is going to be, it doesn't even have a name. It probably should, but in our scenario, what a building really is about, what we care about, is the fact that it's something that contains rooms, and like it's either 0, 1, 2, 3, n rooms, and then the rooms, if you do the same exercise and look at what a room is, it's also going to be something pretty simple this time around. A room may have, like, we may have consolidated and probably calculated somehow the temperature and the humidity of the room. And in order to do that, we might actually rely on the fact that a room may contain stuff. And stuff is, in this particular case, it can be anything. So we can maybe have rooms containing rooms. That probably doesn't make much sense, but at least our model is pretty open there. But this containment relationship, we will probably use it for modeling and describing the sensors that a room contains, right? And so maybe what you can try and start and do, and by the way, in the latest version of the GitHub repo, I slightly improved the model so that it's a bit more constrained in terms of what you can and cannot do, but we can probably stick to this version. And you can use the plus icon for creating a new building, maybe, right? And yeah, it's going to be, someone has been doing some tests.
I think that's from last week, actually.
yeah, I think I remember that we did some. Oh, so maybe, are you saying that we have some, like if you do the run query thingy, maybe there's the things from last week or the week
You'd have
before.
thought so.
Maybe we should.
I think though, well, when I use the word we, I mean me. Just this is.
Oh, you recreated everything.
Well, yeah, because when I deleted, you had a problem with your server and it stopped working or something happened to it. Mine also stopped. Or it didn't stop completely. I could get to the login page, but I couldn't log in. It was giving me some sort of a database error. So I had to deprovision all of the resources and reprovision them all, which included all the digital twin stuff. But I did notice that also last week we forgot to update this URL. So it was actually pointing at an old digital twins instance that I had rather than the new one, which would have been really confusing when we came to try and do something with it. So yeah, we essentially lost everything.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, maybe your house has a couple of rooms that you can model, and like even without any relationships being modeled, it's already useful to do this. And this is something that could be done also automatically by like synchronizing an existing. There's actually a feature to import Excel spreadsheets if that's what your data is coming from. You can import a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet and then establish the links, right? And so yeah, you select both, and then you can do the add relationship thingy, and as per the ontology / meta model, this is allowed, right? If you were to try and connect a building to a building, that wouldn't work, because this is not like there's no such relationship available or modeled on the building. But this one does work, and this will be useful later on for writing queries, right? Like the idea is that this model of twins of entities is going to be evolving, either because other people like you, like who are interacting with your system, will end up creating and populating new buildings, new rooms based on, like, I don't know, like stuff they get from the facility managers and whatnot, and or the model will evolve because third-party systems, the ThingStack, Azure IoT Hub, AWS IoT, whatever, will feed data into the graph, into the database, if you will, and will update the model. And then the model will be sort of living its life. And the Digital Twins API at any time can be used to write queries such as, hey, for building Pitts House _1, can I please get the list of all the rooms in it? Oh, and by the way, can I get all the stuff that those rooms are linked to? And if this stuff happens to be a humidity sensor, I wouldn't mind getting the value from those sensors, because this way I can compute the average of the humidity in a room, hence sort of transitively in a building, because I can do the math and have my query sort of bubble up all that information. And that's essentially what we're going to do. Like, we start seeding some buildings and rooms into the system, and then when it comes to the sensors, it's going to be coming from the ThingStack.
Just like that. I'm assuming the queries we could even do, give me all of the rooms in this building where the humidity is greater than 60% or something like that.
Yep, totally. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, it starts getting really powerful, the sort of reporting that you can get out of that. And obviously, we're going from building down to room, and we're then getting a sensor and stopping at that. But you can go right down through this. I mean, you could have some sensors within a PC, and you could model the PC, and then the sensor inside the PC even, and keep going down and down and down as far as you like. And I'm pretty sure I've seen people modeling wire as well for interconnects, which is just, it's crazy, sort of the graph then that you can build up when you're doing that.
Yeah, and oftentimes like in this particular exercise and example, we end up creating our own pretty naive ontology with like very simple, super basic attributes for what is a building, what is a room, etc. But like in real life and in the real estate management industry, of course, a building or a room is much more complicated and much more complex. So there are existing ontologies out there, right? For real estate, there is something called real estate core. For all things smart cities, there are like tons of standard bodies working all year round on agreeing on what should be a what is a street light, what is a whatever you may find in a smart city, a parking sensor, etc. And then they agree essentially on what are the characteristics, the attributes of such and such entity in their world. And then those ontologies are things that can be referenced and imported in digital twins, in Azure Digital Twins, right? So that the entities that you manipulate, they are actually aligned with what you would find in such and such system involved in a smart city, because those systems end up usually aligning to standards coming from the either the standard bodies, or just like sometimes it's a regulation thingy as well.
And this is where plug and play comes from as well, isn't it? It's the same DDTL stuff that plug and play is based on, and you can create your capability model for your device and then use that as a provisioning mechanism to be able to create templates in things like IoT Central and IoT Hub and stuff like that. So it's pretty powerful language, and I think where Microsoft are going to push into and hope for some, as you've just said there, some industry standardization, so that people are just going to conform to this as a standard, and it just makes everybody's life easier when they're provisioning infrastructure like this. What's interesting is companies like Bentley Systems are using digital twins to model bridges as well, which is a completely different idea to what we're doing here. But the theory's the same. It's still individual pieces that make up that bridge, and then they can predict when that bridge is going to need maintenance before it fails, which would be a bad thing. Bentley Systems, not the car manufacturer, by the way, just the same name. I think Pamela Cortez did a fantastic deep dive with them about that recently. You can find that on YouTube and Channel 9 and all those good places. So we've got a house and we've got two rooms in that building, rather.
What we don't have, though, is at least two things. One is on the left-hand side in the model view, I do see the building, I do see the room, I do see my Dragino sensor. We don't have a DTDL, a digital twin definition language description for your sensor, right? So we will have to probably take inspiration from the Dragino model and model what is for you, or rather for the whoever is the manufacturer of your sensor, what are the capabilities, what are the characteristics of this guy, or these guys actually, because you have two class of sensors. So we'll have to create that, and we will have to create a bridge between the Things stack and Azure Digital Twins, like the LoRaWAN network server. The Things stack is just like virtually any LoRaWAN network out there, is essentially just a pipe that, like, you provision your devices, your sensors into it, and then devices can connect, send data, but then data is only passing through, right? And the role of the network server is to help you connect your sensors to whatever are your actual applications. And usually things like the Things stack, stacks like the Things stacks, they provide you with a way to call webhooks whenever there is a sensor reporting data. You can very easily trigger a call to a webhook. And so we will need to implement a very simple Azure function that is going to be responsible for being sort of the sync for this particular webhook. And whenever essentially the webhook gets called, the LoRaWAN payload is being passed to the webhook, and then the webhook is like, oh, okay, let's give that to Azure Digital Twins, and that will end up either creating a new twin or updating an existing twin. But this is some pretty generic, pretty straightforward code, but we will need to deploy essentially the Azure function that does that. So yeah, I see that you're in the right spot there. So maybe take the Dragino model, and we will just sort of do a copy of the Dragino model and just adapt and make sure that the attributes align with the with what we have for your BRA1.
I'm just going to call it BRA1 TH. I can't remember exactly what the model number is now. I think I had that somewhere, or maybe I didn't. In fact, I've got them here. So there's one thing that I did as well as part of that resetting back up again is that we have to have a way to be able to process those messages. They come in with a big packet full of data and you don't know what to do with them. So you've got these decoding functions that you can create against a device or against a whole application. And so you need one for the temperature and humidity sensor and one for the motion sensor, obviously going to give you different data. So that's where I'm here, their GitHub repository. But nicely, they also link to the devices. And so I was actually just going to have a look and see if they give a model number, because it's better to give a model number when we're doing this, because there could be more than one different types of these things. So Let's see, does it actually give it at the end of that? AU868. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory, that is, but I'll probably give it in the product details then. Yes, there we are. Look, so TBHH100, we give it that. It'll be exactly the same between the EU 868 band and the US one, I guess. So we don't need to worry too much about that. So back over in here, let's give that its proper name. A little bit like, tell you what, look, let's format it exactly the same as what spaces in names. Oh, that scare me. Spaces in names do. So this is what we're going to put LoRaWAN in for the ID, and then let's do that in lowercase as well. TBHH, and then this is going to be LoRaWAN, and then that battery level of the TBHH 100, temperature, humidity, and this is going to be quite easy because this is going to map one for one. But when we get to the motion sensor, that's not going to be the case because it's going to be completely different. Although, interestingly, I think I spotted that there is a temperature in the motion sensor. So I'm not quite sure what that's about. So we've named it and we've given it the type that's still the same in this English representation, and then battery level, and then temperature, and then battery level again down there. I'll leave that as it is because I think that's referring to something else, isn't it?
Which one's that? Yeah, for my Dragino sensor, there is a like it has a built-in temperature sensor and humidity sensor, so you can just use it as is, or you can also plug in like an external, probably more accurate actually sensor as well. So that's why it has like several characteristics. And one thing that you will need to be careful about is you should probably, maybe you can open it up in VS Code alongside the DTDL model, opening up the payload, the JavaScript payload decoder, because in terms of naming the characteristics, naming the all the properties, they should match, like they should exactly match what's going to be in the JSON, essentially, in the JavaScript object that's being sent by the payload formatter. So, yeah, I don't remember exactly how. Yeah, see temp underscore ambient and
CO2.
things like that. So.
This is the same device. So this is our temperature and humidity sensor, but it conforms to the same spec as their CO2 version of this as well. So we get some extra stuff, but we get RH there, but they're I guess it's what's fed back here, isn't it? So with Perea, so it's these bits here, isn't it? I guess we're talking about.
Yeah, I think we should put the ones that we care about, and I'm not sure. Yeah, hopefully the ones that get passed and that are not used shouldn't be an issue. Let's see. Yeah, let's just put temp board, temp ambient, RH, RHR.
Yeah, well, I think when I noticed it.
Or you can also look in the logs. Maybe you look in the logs at the actual result of how it looks like when it's being decoded. But maybe we will have to wait 10 minutes for the things to show up. So, oh yeah, maybe you'll get it. Yeah, it's there. So maybe try and get it from there.
That's
where is it?
No, that's something else. Hold on.
This one's good.
There you go. This.
Yeah, decoded payload. Yeah.
So this one seems to be. I'm not sure. That's got an offset, I think, hasn't it? That it must have, unless that's in degrees Fahrenheit or something. But that'd be higher, actually, wouldn't it?
That's going from Celsius to Fahrenheit, isn't it?
I'm not sure. It's the other way around, isn't it? 21 degrees C would be 40, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, wouldn't it? So I'm not sure what. There's an offset, I seem to remember. Yeah, there would be an offset, wouldn't there?
Yeah, or maybe we
only want that one, though, don't we? We only want one. So I'm going to choose that one because 21's about right.
Yeah, try and use only that one, yes.
So this, is it that one? the name that we're going to modify.
Yes, that's the one that needs to
Yep.
be exactly the same.
And relative
Yes.
humidity was just RH. And that's, oh, and the battery level is BAT.
Mm-hmm.
And then was there just one of those? Yeah, there was. So that's as easy as it is then to specify that. Say easy. It is when Benjamin's telling me exactly what to do.
Yeah.
It's easy when you know how.
Yeah, exactly. So, and now at this point, I can go back across to our Azure Digital Twins, and we can upload the model, which is here, and open that. And then we should get, assuming that it works and we're not broken something, then we get the brow and TBH. And in fact, we can click on that and zoom in, and we can see the things that we've specified in there. Exactly the same as it is in VS Code, of course, but it just proves that that's gone in. And then we can add one, Browen, and I'm going to put it Pete's temp sensor 1. Just keep with this. Oh.
Well, actually, I would recommend that you don't do that, because we don't need to. We shouldn't need to. I mean, you can for testing that it works and sort of like pretend like that we have a sort of almost a simulated sensor. But what should happen is that once we will have set up properly the integration between the Think Stack and Azure Digital Twins, this should happen automatically. Like that's what we want. We want that whenever a new sensor appears in the system, its twin makes its way into the Azure Digital Twins environment. So I don't mind you testing, right? But at the end of the day, the actual sensor's twin, this one will and should appear immediately, right? So you can do the test with the plus thingy and make sure that the attributes that we model, they do show up, and that you can edit them in the Property Explorer on the right hand side. But then we will just like scratch this guy and wait for it to reappear automatically.
Good plan. Pete's temp sensor 1, and then so metadata model, battery, temperature, and humidity, and we can obviously I think you can type them in as well, can't you, to sort of give them a starting point. But we can obviously stick that in my office by doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not actually going to do this part because we're going to delete it. But interestingly,
yeah, you need to select like the order actually matters. It should be this guy first, and then, which can be confusing. But and just by the way, I mean, this tool is nice. I really like the Azure Digital Twins Explorer. It's certainly not perfect, and it's certainly not the only option that folks have to interact with digital twins, right? And like here for testing, for like bootstrapping our solution, it makes sense to have this kind of tool that is almost, I would say, more a developer tool. But then when you have hundreds or thousands of buildings and sensors and whatnot, managing the links between all those, etc., it probably requires some dedicated tooling that you very likely end up building on top of digital twins by using the APIs and so on, right? And so and again, maybe some of the relationship, they will be automatically synchronized from an SAP environment anyways, right? So it's not like you need to always use the GUI for doing things like what we're doing now.
Interestingly, when I tried to do that link, Benjamin, the relationship doesn't populate. I can't click that.
Because it's the other way around. You should click on the office first.
Pete's office
and then
contains there you go, exactly like you said. The order matters.
And that's why I was doing my little explanation on the fact that the tool may not sound like or look like it's perfect. It actually makes a lot of sense that there is an order for establishing the relationship. But yeah, I mean, it's meant to be used only at the development stage, and I wouldn't expect anyone to be productive with this particular tool or to use it in production for more than just a handful of entities that you want to quickly interact with.
Cool. Then, so we've prepared our Azure Digital Twins. So what does this look like if you didn't have this tool? What is it, like a text view, like a JSON view of this whole thing? Is it one big long JSON document? I seem to remember the V1 was sort of like that.
So the way you would interact with it would be through the for reading and getting information. You would likely just like write queries, SQL-like queries, like we see here, and for sort of more like creating, updating, manipulating the different entities, you would just use the either the SDKs in Python, .NET, and whatnot, or the REST APIs for like interacting with the raw entities, and or for building your own tools on top of the environment.
So when you're doing that, certainly if you're comparing this to IoT Hub or other Azure services, then often you need some form of credential system for accessing a service like that. I mean, we've set up access control here, but I'm guessing it'd be something different for you to be able to interact with it through an SDK or something.
Yes and no, because yes and no. The way to authenticate against an Azure Digital Twins endpoint is by using you need some form of identity to authenticate. So the identity could be either and that's what we did when you authenticated your Digital Twins Explorer. It could be like your actual Azure account, and then whenever you like you tell the SDK, hey, use my my Azure credentials, then it will look for the credentials in either your environment variables, or it will just if you're in VS Code, it may be able to reuse the credentials that VS Code already has to authenticate against Azure, or for like when you're building like more a standalone application, or maybe an Azure function, which we are going to do in just a few minutes. Then you assign an identity to the Azure function, and then you grant this particular identity the Azure Digital Twin data owner or data reader permission, so that they can do their stuff, right? Could be the same for a VM. Like if you want an entire VM running in Azure to be able to do digital twin stuff, then you assign an identity to the virtual machine, or you take the system assigned identity, and then you use that as the handle, if you will, to give new permissions in in like exactly in the UI that we're looking at.
Interesting. I mean, Cliff, I know that you did this without any infrastructure whatsoever. You just looked at the raw radio. Did you worry about authentication at all on that, or it was fine, we're only reading open data? Oh, you're muted, I think, for some reason.
Sorry, no, my son walked past a few minutes ago. He's doing his classroom, and he's doing about Java, and he had a question for me. So that's why I muted myself. Was saying yes on that one, because it was bespoke to us. We'd bit bangs the data into a couple of bytes, so they would have got the bytes and they could have looked at the bytes, but it'd have been absolutely meaningless to them. So that was security via obscurity as a model there, and it wasn't particularly important data, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, that's fair. Good. So what's the next job then, Benjamin? You mentioned the Azure function.
What is it? Yeah, I think we need to deploy the Azure function. Like maybe have a quick look at why we're doing that. If you go in the ThinkStack backend for your application, Yeah, if you look at the application.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've used the payload formatters section to set up like a formatter, a decoder for our sensors. Although I think maybe you did it for, you did it at the sensor level, but that's fine. That's good actually. And then alongside the payload formatter section, there is the integrations thingy, which allows to have the thing stack tap into third-party systems or to have third-party systems tap into the thing stack. For the latter, that would be through, for example, like the MQTT integration would be a way for a third-party system to connect to the ThingStack's MQTT built-in MQTT broker to start like getting sensor data from the network's fire hose, right? Another option would be using webhooks, like we're going to do. And this time for the webhooks, it's going to be more the other way around. It's going to be the ThingStack pushing data to our third-party systems, and so here. We essentially want to be able to be like, hey, for this particular application, we'd like it to push data to Azure Digital Twins, except that doing it directly will probably be not that easy, and we probably don't want to, because in terms of permissions and etc., we don't want like to directly have the thing stack talk to digital twins. So what we're going to add in between is a very simple serverless Azure function that's going to be sort of the proxy, taking care of taking a payload coming from a LoRaWAN sensor connected to the thing stack, and turn that into a digital twins API call, so that we update the digital twins graph accordingly. So yeah, well, so you can already like have a quick look at how the UI looks like for setting up the webhook, but it's nothing particularly surprising there. Yeah, you can add a webhook, and then it's going to be a regular, like a plain custom webhook, where essentially we need to give it a name. We need to, and maybe we can already set it up, and we'll come back to it later. Like we can, so we give it a name, the format we want the data to be sent as JSON, although protobuf would probably be more efficient bandwidth-wise, but we don't care. It's going to be backend to backend communication. The URL is going to be something Azure function something, and then in terms of the kind of messages that we want to forward to the webhook, it's going to be, we care mostly about the uplink, right? The rest, I don't even think we will want to enable it, because it's probably going to be confusing more than anything. But yeah, that's it. So we do need, though, to deploy the function. So we can go back to VS Code maybe, and the code from the GitHub repo. We can do everything from VS Code.
We can. I need to open up the this level, I think. Open my code and then let that finish opening up. VS Code is fantastic, extensible, open source editor for all of your purposes. But the longer you use it, the more extensions you add to it, the longer it actually takes to open. One of the beautiful things about VS Code when you first get it is it's super fast. So you go from Visual Studio down to VS Code, and it's like, oh, why am I ever using Visual Studio again? And then after about a year, and you've added all of the extensions to turn it into Visual Studio, it takes exactly the same or longer to load. So there you go.
It's you end up back at being, you had so many extensions, you end up being back at Visual Studio, don't you? So
exactly that. So, I mean, I've got Azurite installed and Blob Service here, and I've got the Azure IoT Hub stuff and CMake, and I think that's SQL Server stuff there, and Arduino extensions, and I've got all sorts of stuff.
It's like you need a different instance of Visual Studio Code, like VS Code. You need like one where you open up where I'm going to be playing IoT today, and it just says those extensions. You can have another instance where you have just those extensions. There must be a way of doing that. There must be.
That's a really good. I had that same thought, exactly the same thought when you were saying all of that. It'd be good to have one that just opened up what it is you're going to work on. So you could have like a right click and open my IoT version of VS Code, or open my C# editing version, or whatever. That'd be quite cool. This folder contains a dev container configuration as well.
I think it's called code spaces.
You are right. Exactly
code
that.
spaces. Yeah.
I've not delved into that enough, but I know Benjamin, you made a video, I think, didn't you, about how to do IoT programming with code spaces? So.
Well, and if you look at your, I didn't pay attention to the pop-up that you just dismissed, but it might have been related to code spaces. And if you look at this exactly, the dev container folder, right in there, actually did describe what I think are the extensions that are essentially the core of what's needed for this particular workspace. You except like for personal preferences, I don't think you need more, although maybe there is a super fancy JSON editor that you're super familiar with that you always want to use, but otherwise, like those four would do the job for editing the DTDL models, for automatically deploying the Azure functions, for debugging the payload decoder. And so if you and I think the first time, essentially the first time you opened VS Code and the pop-up you just dismissed, it was essentially telling you, hey, I did find a dev container config. Do you want me to reopen everything again in a new, in a containerized version of VS Code with only those extensions in it? Because, well, one, it might be faster, and two, it's actually closer to the original intent of the author, right? In terms of, for hacking against this particular repo, this is what you need. Please don't use any other fancy extensions that may mess up with the formatting of the code and so on. Just use whatever is part of the repo itself, right? So that's one way to do it.
Yeah, it's
and essentially never install tons of extensions in your sort of baseline VS Code, and just rely on the fact that whatever workspace you're going to end up cloning or hacking against is going to bring their own additional extensions if needed.
I was hoping that perhaps I could right-click on it and actually open VS Code with that, but it looks like there's...
probably want to use the Control-Shift-P thingy and look for a container or something, or...
lots of different containers, yeah.
Yeah, there is something. It's reopen. Maybe open or reopen will yield what we want. Yeah, reopen container. It was there.
The reopening container. There we are. Yeah, reopening containers. Well, let's have a look. We're talking about it. So
it might be this one.
I'm not sure that's you need to have Docker running.
But you don't have Docker running anyways.
What's great about code spaces is one of the great uses for it is onboarding new staff. If you've got somebody who's coming in on day one, and if you've ever read the Unicorn project, then you'll understand a little bit about this, where it can be quite difficult for new people to get their setup right on their machine. Certainly if it's bring your own machine to something like this, to be able to get you up and running. And I mean, this is a very small example of that, but it could be quite a complicated set of stuff that you need to get set up. I guess when you open it in that container, you still need to do all the authentication, because now you are running a separate instance almost. So you'll need to do all that re-authentication after that as well. So that's probably a good reason not to do this now at this point in time. So that's fine. So what we've got down here then, after that discussion, is we have this Azure function. And we should have this webhook and a function.json and an index.js and bits and bobs. So this is a JavaScript node function we've got here, rather than a C# function then.
Yep, because I don't like C#. No, I'm just not used to it. Actually, the last time I did some .NET or some C# stuff was probably like almost 20 years ago or whatever. I mean, 20 years, I don't think it's technically possible, but yeah, it was like in 2004 or something. But yeah, it turns out that like, well, not only it's like perfectly supported to do Azure functions in JavaScript, but also there is a fully supported Azure Digital Twins SDK as well. And so the function we're looking at, it's pretty simple. It's going to be at line 11. Actually, there is something that is really worth paying attention to. It's the what's happening there. The default Azure credential thingy is actually going to be so this particular API, and there's the equivalent in I think all the SDKs, is going to be like, hey, in my current environment, do I have Azure credentials? And I think you can try and control click maybe to get the full doc, because it would be interesting to see there is. Or maybe not because you didn't npm install, but yeah, or you can, or just Google it so that we can look at, because I think it's worth, yeah, just Google this guy. And in whichever version, yeah, the .NET version will do it. They have the same all have the same workflow. Essentially, what it does is it's going to try in order to see whether you have an environment variable step that is essentially indicating that you're successfully authenticated against Azure, and then it's going to use those credentials to try and have whatever SDK you're going to use to authenticate their calls. Or if there's no environment variable, it's going to look whether there is a managed identity that's been assigned. So in the context of an Azure function or an Azure virtual machine, it's going to look for whatever are the magic, again, environment variables or things in the context of the runtime that make up for a token. If there's no such thing, then there might be a short token, which I don't even know what that is, or it's going to look, hey, am I currently running in a VS or VS Code environment? If yes, let's reuse those credentials. You know, you can, when you start using the Azure extensions and plugins in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, like the first time you do it, you authenticate, right? So that could be another option. If you're running, if you've installed the Azure CLI on your system, it's actually setting some config files in a hidden folder in your home directory, which this particular API might be able to find and to reuse. And or if all that fails, it's going to be like, hey, let's open the user's browser, if possible, depending on where the code is running. But let's try and open the browser and ask for the user to do the OAuth typical thingy, and then let's use those credentials. But long story short, it means that if you go back to the code, past line 11, granted that whatever is the environment in which we're going to run the code is, if in this particular environment we are authenticated against Azure, then this particular handle, this particular set of credentials will be used and passed to the Digital Twins client, which means that if you try and run this snippet of code locally in the Node console, it will likely work because it will find on your system either your Azure CLI credentials or your VS Code credentials, and that's fine. But then eventually this code is something we're going to deploy in Azure in the form of an Azure function. And so in this particular instance, of course, it's not going to use VS Code credentials. It's not going to use the CLI credentials. It's going to use the managed identity credential, because the Azure function, we will assign an identity to it, and we will make sure that this identity is given access to Digital Twins, and that's how we will make it all work. So long story short, this is super cool because this means that you have just one line of code to add to the Azure function to deal with all the typical complexity of doing OAuth, AAD, blah, 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 getting tokens, generating tokens. Like it's all working automatically, which is really nice.
Cool.
That's a better word. That's definitely the word to use. I've not used that before, so that's really interesting. Is this something we could do for IoT Hub service rather than device, I'm thinking, rather than using shared access or...
For service calls, for calls to the Azure IoT Hub, so-called service APIs, like if you want to manipulate the device registry or like do things like that, yes, that would work. For authenticating the devices, like when a device is sending data, typically you would want it to use the like the device endpoint and the typical mechanism to communicate. Although you could also use the service APIs and this Azure credential thingy to impersonate a device when you do your tests. So that would be an option too, I guess.
Interesting.
And you would bypass the the pre-shared key or bypass the X509 certs, because you would be acting more as a super user in the system.
You'd lose out on things like direct method calls and messages and all the cloud to device stuff you'd miss out on there, I guess. But yeah, if you wanted to do stuff directly, that would work. That's cool. I've not thought of it before. Obviously, we think sort of SAS tokens or certificates or stuff like that for authenticating for service. You're right about the device. Probably best leave it as it is. But yeah, I've not thought of using something like that. So that's cool. I like that. Good to know. So is it worth going through any of the rest of this code here to explain what it's doing?
Well, it should be pretty straightforward. What it takes is the JSON payload coming from the call that the thing stack will be making to our backend, and then if it's the and it's just turning that into a call to Azure Digital Twins API, right? At row 18, like it's doing the upsert digital twin thingy. So we'll, the only thing that we will want and need to do is change slightly the payload decoder that you've already set up. One thing that's missing there is that it's not sending the metadata that we need to indicate what is the DTDL model that the sensor is implementing. So on your sensor directly
end device.
in the end, in the end devices.
That's cool. And so I've got all of this. Blah, blah.
Yeah. So but you're looking at the motion sensor though. Maybe we should do the temperature one.
Well spotted.
Mm-hmm.
So?
Well, it's taking a lot of effort to anticipate on what will break eventually, so making sure that we don't end up in a dead end. So this one I got it. You can probably add it there. So we want to add params, and so it needs to be well, maybe you can figure it out. Look at the ADT Explorer maybe first. Look at how things look like look at how a twin looks like in ADT Explorer. Like double click on whatever existing the purple or the orange one, and then on the right hand side, see there is like the object contains the temperature and the humidity, that's one, but also contains a dollar metadata attribute, which itself contains an object with a dollar model property with a string associated. So that's essentially what we need to add to our decoded payload, so that it kind of looks already like it's a twin, right? So you might need to. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be valid JavaScript, but let's try it that way.
I don't think it'll like that.
Do you know how to do it otherwise? Like otherwise, you do params square brackets. Yes.
Probably the same again,
so
isn't it?
Metadata.
Oh, metadata. Yep. Has it got a capital D?
And
nope.
then equal. Nope. And then equals.
Oh, okay.
And then an object, so curly braces.
Okay. Yep. And there's something. Well.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Live coding's not very interesting, yeah. Let's see which chat Benjamin's going to use. We have OBS chat and we've got the Twitch chat. I suppose in the Twitch chat would be beneficial to everybody.
Sure, yeah, let's do that.
But yeah, I need to have a model in there. Oh, is it just an object like that? Is that what we want? And then... something like that. Let's see what it is. Oh, okay, no square. Just as it is then. Equals blah, blah, blah.
So it's basically just a JSON packet, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what I've got. I'm just making sure. I could copy and paste it, but I just wanted to test myself and just see if I was close enough. And I wasn't far off. So, and then blah, blah, blah is going to be this DTMI stuff here that we're going to get out of this to a degree, I'm guessing. This is going to be that DTMI stuff. Which actually is going to be...
Yeah, the bro one. Yes. Yep.
We need to get from over here. If I'm going to copy it from the model and the brow one. And this. All of that, I'm guessing. And then back to here. Oh, no, not back to there. Back to that. And then that. And it's complaining because I need one of those on the end. And it still doesn't like something. Not quite sure.
You also got an equals in the middle instead of a colon.
Ah, there you see. I wasn't perfect, was I?
Yeah,
that's what it is. Exactly that. See, colon. Yeah, that should be it. I think, isn't it?
Yes, that looks good enough. And we can, well, we would need to wait 10 more minutes to see it.
I think I can breathe on
the
it.
logs, in the
Can
local logs.
Can we update this one to send it straight away?
No, the motion sensor does. But I think if I change the humidity or the temperature by a certain amount, then it sends it immediately.
Yes.
So I'll save that first, and then I'll go to the live data. And I mean, we could. Deploy the function and everything and do this all at once because we've got to wait again after this bit.
We should do that
first, and then we'll change it and see if the whole thing works. Otherwise, we're not going to get that change next time. So we go back to our function again in here, but we can right click on this, can't we, and deploy to an Azure function app. Is that what we're going to do? Yep.
Yes.
I've got to guess which one it actually is. Let's see if we can find. Create a new function app. Should I have created it first, or should I just do it in...
Yes. Take the advanced one. This way you will have more flexibility. Yeah, for associating to the proper resource group and things like that. Because otherwise, I think it's doing a lot of.
There's a proper naming convention, by the way, that I'm not using here. So don't shoot me down. Select a runtime stack. We are going to need Node. Any idea which one?
I think 14 would be good.
Okay. And Linux or Windows? I seem to remember there being an actual difference between those two, actually. Something was different.
That's a good question. Whatever I put in the instruction.
Let's have a look.
No, I am pretty sure both would work. Maybe the pricing is slightly different, but I'm not even sure.
Probably Linux, it'd be cheaper.
Yeah, I remember having a trouble with some networking problems with the Linux ones, but I don't know if that. So let's have a look. Oh.
Well, in the instruction, I'm saying Windows. So
that's what we'll do then.
Windows.
And we'll go with consumption. I'm guessing that's fine. And then, look, I've chosen the right. See, what would have been annoying is that I've got 2 Azure sponsorship subscriptions there. They look the same, and so I had to guess which one it was going to be. And yeah, this one here that's the resource group that I've got all the rest of that LoRaWAN stuff deployed into. So I'm going to deploy it into that. We'll need to create a new storage account, I'm guessing. Although, is that? I'm not sure if one of these is actually yours. I don't think it is actually. Let's create a new one then. LoRaWAN Func Store. Oh. Do we need app insights? Are we bothered? It could be useful if this doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I typically don't enable it.
Okay, skip for now. And I'm going to do US Central. Where is it? US South. Where's that? South US. Where is it? I want to keep it in the same place, otherwise we're going to get data charges, aren't we? It's, where's US South? Why can't I find that on that list? South Central US. There it is. I found it.
Well, there is an autocomplete thingy. You just stop typing
you're
South.
right. Yeah.
And then...
Oh, well, I don't like things to be too easy.
Yeah. So it's going to deploy. It's not going to work the first time around. And so you guys need to tell me why. And there are 2 reasons why it's not going to work the first time around. At least 2. The third is probably going to be us screwing up something else. But there's at least 2 things that we'll need to change soon enough.
Authentication is not going to work, is it? Because we've not given us permission anywhere to connect to digital twins. The second one, I'll let Cliff try and guess.
We haven't connected the function yet, have we? You haven't gone into the Things network and told it what function to use.
That's the third one.
That's true. That's not the one I was thinking about.
That's the third one. That's the one I could think of then.
Yeah. Pete, if you go up just a bit in the code, just slightly, yeah.
You haven't connected to the around. You haven't given it a URL.
Yes, we will need to set up at line 9. It's assuming that there is an Azure Digital Twins URL and variable set up. So we will need to set that up. And so as soon as the function will be up and running, we will be able to configure it. Right, and so we can do it straight from VS Code and essentially be like, hey, for this particular Azure function, the Azure Digital Twins URL env variable should be blah, and we will put the HTTPS endpoint of the Digital Twins environment of Pete, and that should do the trick.
Ooh, is that?
And I think there's also a way somewhere in the if you look in the file explorer, I think at the root of there is, what is it called, host.json. I think there is a way, I think, to set up some default. I think there we could probably set up a default value for, or is it the config.yaml maybe? I think it might be there. Oh no, that's that's at the root of the that's the root of the repo. Yeah, there is a way somewhere to set up the default values for the env variables. I just never know where that is, and that probably wouldn't be exactly what we want either, right? I mean, it could be convenient to have a default value, but in prod, you always end up doing the actual configuration of the system, and default values only take you so far. So
is it like a .env file that you would use here somewhere in VS Code, but that doesn't get deployed, does it? That doesn't set up the function in prod.
Yeah, it's something along those lines. I don't remember. I think the default template, like the Azure function VS Code extension, it typically creates the file that may end up containing those default values. Maybe I just removed the file. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, you want to be careful.
Interestingly, I don't think you have the Azure extension that we will need. Yes, you do.
I suppose you also want to be
So
careful.
you're gonna
have
actually
them in variables being put into GitHub. Like if you,
yeah, exactly.
so
Yeah. So that's why I didn't do it.
Although
in the first
you
place.
just add your .env to the get ignore, and off you go. And in fact, if you do a Visual Studio one, it often does even have it in the. There it is. Look, it's already in the get ignore for Visual. If you choose a Visual Studio get ignore, it'll give you that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So it's still going. It's good that we've got plenty to talk about while it's doing things like this, but it's not quite as bad as having to wait for the original infrastructure to spin up, because that takes about 20 minutes. So, yeah, you definitely want.
But looks like we're in business now.
Yep. So I mean, we can stream logs.
So the function is running.
But
yeah.
We can't do that at the moment.
So let's do those 2.5 things that are missing then, right?
Yep. So if we go back to, in fact, LoRaWAN 2, could have done it that way. LoRaWAN 2, where are you? Down here. There. And we should have, 1080p is no good, is it? For the portal, it just doesn't like it. So there's our function app.
That's fine. I think that's fine.
When I'm recording my Pluralsight videos, we've gone to 1080p, and then actually it's made it harder, because at least at 720, everything really does just kind of shrink, and it folds down in the mobile responsive mode. In 1080p, it tries not to, and it squishes stuff up quite a lot. But yeah, so here's our function app, and what we're going to need is the URL for it. So it's always .azurewebsites.net, no matter what you do, unless you choose to add your own domain name to these things, but the default one is always going to be azurewebsites.net. And this is what we're going to have to add over in our integrations, I guess, when we go through and do that. Did I come out of the integration? No, I didn't. There it is. So it'll be that, won't it, to start with, for the endpoint, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And then you need your API key.
Yeah, that's not the. Yeah, you need the URL to the function. So you need to drill down.
Yes, right. Yeah, this is the app
UI
service we're looking at, I guess. I'm not actually in the function, are we? Maybe this.
Yeah.
Quite right. And then, get function URL. There we are. Copy that. And go back to whichever one these was. This one here. And that. All of that. And this will be deprovisioned at some point after all of this, so I'm not really bothered if anybody's seen that key. So that code there is that the API key, essentially, that it's got at the end that you can't see now. So I don't need to put that in there.
Yeah, you don't need to. Yep. Yeah, we're good.
And then we're only going to do that.
Yeah, it's not required field, is it? 'Cause it hasn't got a asterisk.
Yeah, that's right. So after that, we've got the uplink messaged. We don't need a path here anywhere.
Nope. That's really at the like the function only does one thing, and it's only expecting like data to be posted on like at the root of the webhook. So
add webhook. Let's see if that blows up. Oh, it's done that. So next is authentication, isn't it? We've got to authenticate the function to the Digital Twins instance. And so you can guide us through how to do that.
Yep. Well, we're close enough. It's I think you need to go up once more. Yeah, I think it's the identity thingy. Where is it? Or maybe we just follow the function, the instruction. Yeah, but it's somewhere there, in the functions section.
Oh, sorry.
Further down.
There.
Where is it? Yeah, let's just It's this is the wrong repo. You need to look at the LoRaWAN ADT demo repo.
So not this. So that's in still in your repos here. Repositories. I probably was going to be there somewhere, wasn't it? But this one. Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. Mm-hmm.
Introduction, prerequisites. So we're not doing any Blender stuff, although I do have Blender installed on my machine, by the way. Hardware, LoRaWAN gateway, we've done all of that. Structure of the repository is stuff that we've been all through. So been in there, been in there, been in, not been in that one, but we have been in there already. Set up the server, provisioning a LoRaWAN gateway, we've done all of this, which is good. Provisioning the LoRaWAN application, we did that too. Dragino, blah, blah, blah. Setting up the ADT stuff, we've done that. Bridging the gap, so Azure Digital Twins, follow the official instructions to deploy a function app for the Azure portal, we've done that. Subscription, blah, 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 all of that is exactly like we've just done. Settings configuration section of the function app, you need to give it a systems assigned managed identity, so settings configuration of the function app. Settings.
Yeah, I think it's... Yeah, there we go.
Yep,
configuration.
Is it?
No.
Oh, is it? Okay.
No, it's actually configuration.
Yep, that one.
It.
Come on, you can do it. What's your problem? It's not that hard to open the configuration, is it? There we go. Okay. Well.
That's where you're going to add your
variable,
isn't it?
Yeah, this is.
Well, we can. Maybe is there a bug in the instructions? Yeah, there's probably a copy-paste error, right? But it's fine. We can still use this section of the UI to configure the digital twins URL env variable.
Yep, that one there. So we can go back.
Yes.
To here, and then we can do a new application setting. And then that is my ADT, which is over here. I could get that from many different places, but this is where you get it from. And that's this. And then paste that into there. And then OK. Then we have that. And obviously this will get picked up then by the function app automatically. This is its environment here. So it will know to do that. And then I must press save, because the number of times I've done that and not saved it. That actually restarts the web app as well sometimes. The Azure function.
Yeah, we've all done that.
Yep. And then we go to identity. Like in the instructions, I guess I just like mixed up things. If you look at a point at item number 4, it then says go to identity.
So I've saved it.
That's weird.
Yeah. Well, we can check if it doesn't work then. Well, the operation was cancelled. Really? You've got to stay on that blade while it's saving. Is that true?
Maybe not. We'll see. Like you said, we will just have another look. So let's go for system assigned.
Identity. Ooh, system assigned. Yep. And then up.
Yep. On.
And save. Yep. Once it's registered, LoRaWAN function can be granted.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want. Like it would give the function sort of a unique. It will almost make it a user in the system, right? And then this particular user, we will grant it access to digital twins.
Yep, by doing it.
You can stay there.
Oh, sorry.
You can stay right where you were actually, because now see you can. Yeah,
that's cool. It's like you've done this before, Benjamin.
When it works, sometimes it doesn't work.
Oh.
Yeah, so you want to add a role assignment. You want to give.
Add here. Yeah. That makes sense. And not sure. I don't know if it's
Yep, subscription. Okay. Oh. And this is going to be digital twins owner. Wait, no way. You're right. We're not in the right.
Yeah, what's going on here?
Yeah, this wasn't the add role assignment that we should have been looking for. Well, but you're back on the. That's weird. Yeah, just close the. Yeah. And.
They've changed something.
Well, yeah, maybe. So then let's do it like you were about to.
Yeah, role assignments, and then there should be one in here already for me, and then we can add another one in here.
Correct.
Role assignment, and then select a role, and this is where we want Azure. Yeah, so this is what Benjamin was asking why it wasn't there before.
Yeah,
that's what we should have had.
Yeah, you had a, I don't know, permission thing. And yes, this, yeah, you can search for function there.
Oh yeah, function app.
Function app. Oh, and there we go. It's there. It's there.
Oh, that one. There we are. And then save.
That's it. So now the magic, whatever was at line 11 earlier, like this piece of code that tries and find, am I authenticated, or rather, can I get my credentials? It's now going to work. And those credentials at line 14, they're used to try and authenticate against digital twins, and that too will work because. Well, yeah. I mean, line 11, we got around it by actually giving an identity to the function. And line 14, we got around it by actually being like, hey, for this particular identity, it's fine to do digital twins stuff.
Perfect.
So on this particular
I'm
instance.
going to go back, though, because I'm not 100% sure whether or not it saved our configuration personally. So I'm going to check that.
Mm-hmm.
I did start doing that a second ago, but it was taking too long. Sorry, go on, Cliff.
I was going to say, it did show an error, didn't it? So that you'd stopped it, and it probably was because you'd navigated away from the blade.
It did it.
Yeah, it's there, though.
Yeah,
it's there.
I don't like that UX there. You shouldn't need to stay on the... That's about the only part of Azure I've ever seen where you need to stay while it's saving. Up there, because it wasn't telling us down here. In fact, what's that? Oh, updating web app settings cancelled. I'm just going to refresh that. And just make sure, because it could just be stuck, and I don't want us to be scratching our heads. No, I think it's okay. So that's that part. We've done that. Yeah, without leaving the active page. That was the part of the instructions there, and that didn't work for some reason. Go to the settings identity, and add new application setting the following two.
Yeah, and the rest was in case. Yeah, we could have actually gone. Like we could have done everything from the portal without you even having to clone the code or anything like that. We could have been, hey, let's create a new Azure function and let's take whatever is in Benjamin's repo as the source for the function. And like this is essentially a zip file that contains the entire code for the webhook, including like all the dependencies, etc. And it, like all in all, it might actually even be faster to do it that way. I mean, who cares? We've done it like at least with the steps we just went through. At least if we need to change the code for some reason, we're already set up for that. So yeah, and that you did configuring the webhook. So I think we're good. Maybe we can do a quick sanity check. Well, I mean. You can like, we can be super bold and just like look in the ADT Explorer if something just already showed up. I don't know if your sensor has communicated in the past couple minutes, but maybe if you do the run query thingy, and let's see.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Yeah, probably too late.
You have to breathe on it, Pete.
Yeah. Oh, that's taking a long time. Oh, there we go. No, okay. Well, this is good because this is what we want, isn't it? I'd rather it appear after I've forced it to appear, so it's fun out. It's like I'm playing a harmonica, really tiny little harmonica.
Yeah, maybe show us in the meantime, show us the LoRaWAN logs, the app logs, and then yeah, that way we can. Okay, so you actually managed to make it communicate just now. Well, or at least it's just 5 minutes, I guess, since it last communicated. So now it sent a message. This time the function was there on the other end. So let's see if it picked up everything correctly. Yep.
I don't think so. I think that was, yeah.
Yeah, well, there might be a couple of reasons why. So we will, I think at this point, we have to look at the logs of the Azure function to double check that one, it's being called correctly, and two, that it's not crashing. You could also do it from VS Code.
Yeah,
it's your call.
Yeah, I was already here, but you're quite right. Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then logs, come on. Oh, yeah, we didn't turn on App Insights.
Yeah, it's in code plus test if you want to.
Oh, okay.
You got a visitor behind you, Pete.
Yeah, she's gone again now. Embarrassed. I'm surprised she doesn't come in more often, actually. But I've set her up.
Realised she was live.
Yeah, exactly. I've set her up with OBS on her Amy's laptop, my wife's laptop, and she sits there and pretends that she's streaming, and she records herself playing Minecraft and stuff, and she's all happy with that. Bless her. It won't be long before she's streaming, I don't think. Logs. There we are.
Yep, that's the one. And so then either you breathe on the sensor, but I'm not sure if we know for sure it's actually working, or you just go in the logs of, there. And if we just copy paste a snippet of the payload,
yeah,
we can easily reprove. Yeah.
It's that Mac payload, isn't it? Back there, actually. No! Oh, balls!
Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Might be able to get it back from one of the others, actually. Live data.
Yep. This one I had it. Yep, you had the second tab. Yeah. No, I think.
Oh, that one.
Third time. I mean, you had one that had it. Yeah, this one has it. Oh, but that's the motion sensor, so we don't care about the motion sensor. All right. Yeah, you just need to figure out whether breathing is going to work.
Right, actually. No, here we are. So it's in the live data for the application. So I think it's this, isn't it? It was that one there. It's that data, I think.
Correct. Yeah. So take the second line.
That.
Sorry. The second log
the second
entry.
One, that one. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Take this one, and then you copy paste the section. The one that has the metadata, blah, blah thingy in there. The decoded payload. Yeah, so you take...
Just a sec.
No.
Yeah, I'm streaming at the moment, Isla. Just ask Mummy. I'm being badgered now. It's a habit. Isla, I'm in the middle of a live stream. I can't. Mummy will help. Apologies. Right, so I can't just type that in though, can I? I think it wants some hex.
Just copy paste
Everything inside the metadata bit.
The value of the decoded payload. Like what? Take the curly brace
line 43
at the end of 42.
Oh, that. Yep.
Well, start at take just one up. No.
Yeah, quite right.
Yep, there you go, all the way until 60. Yep, there without the comma, of course, and then copy that, and then we can easily test in the Azure function backend or test run.
Right.
That
replace the whole lot.
Control A, Control V.
This is hard.
Let's try it that way. Let's make sure it's actually doing a post, an HTTP post. Yeah, I'm guessing so. Yeah, that's fine. We're good.
And then run. Let's see what that does. Boom. Oh, internal server error.
And then, so what do we have in the logs then?
Close that.
Only absolutely. Interesting. I didn't pay attention to what you put in the digital twins URL env variable. What did you put there?
I put.
Did you put
HTTPS?
HTTPS?
Yes, I did. I put all of the whatever you copy from. You might be right. I think I probably just copied that. So it probably wants HTTPS in there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That'll be it.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So.
Yeah, try not to leave this. Keep. Oh,
sorry.
You should have kept that one open. That's fine.
I'll go back that way.
No worries.
I'll get it again. How frustrating is it, Benjamin, driving somebody else's mouse remotely using your voice?
Yeah. I'm actually trying to click and to select, and it just doesn't work. OBS Ninja apparently is one way.
Right, hold on. So that should have gone back to in there anyway. I can put test and run back up again and leave that as it is. So
and make sure we have the logs open as well. But it's gonna, like, as soon as you change the env variable value, it's gonna like kill the logs anyways.
Yeah, you're right,
and reconnect.
I need to go up from here.
So it wasn't the function app. I think that you need to be go back to the function app. Yep, there we go.
Configuration down here. There we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is going to restart the web app anyway. So, or the function app, same thing. Yeah, so that's the reason why. So,
Daddy, one more question.
can I just? I can't do that. I might need to do this advanced edit. Do I?
Daddy.
Just one second.
I have no idea.
Yes. Can't. Oh, jeez. All right, let's do it in here then, shall we? That's essentially what it wants, isn't it?
Yep.
And now we've got that in there. We can do a save.
Restart the app. That makes sense. Okay.
Oh, just a sec. Barricaded now, doors locked and everything. So that should have finished. That's good. Updated web app settings is done. So we should go back to this and then let's reconnect. Please reconnect. So stop and start. Welcome. You are now doing that. Let's do Control and A, and I need to paste the right thing. That lot. All of this. So I should be able to run that. And hopefully won't get a 500. Oh, I still got one. What's it complaining about this time? Cannot read.
Yeah, but that's or maybe we didn't paste the right. We didn't paste enough, maybe.
You're not going to need the whole packet.
Rather
than just the.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what portion of what we see in the logs is what ends up being posted to the webhook. I'm trying to.
So it's complaining about the fact you can't see device_ID, which I don't think we've added anywhere, have we?
Well, it's because it should be there. It's when we pasted whatever we pasted to do the quick test, we probably didn't exactly paste what typically gets posted in the device ID.
So now we know we fixed that server error. Why don't we try it?
Yeah, we should have.
Device.
So either you blow on the sensor and it eventually works, or you do the copy paste again, but this time you take one more level in the hierarchy, because we should have taken, yeah, the equivalent of the contents of the uplink message.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And on our
27,
way
yeah.
down there, let's check if device ID is there too. Hopefully it will be there. It's not there.
No. So even if we had, it's not there. So it's still not going to work. Oh, we got device
Is
ID
there?
here.
Well, try and copy paste that whole thing then. But I don't think that's what's being. Yep. So we need to go all the way to
Jeez, this is.
whenever is going to be the first.
Yeah. Oh, look at
All the
this.
way down, all the way to 103. Yes.
I think.
Yes, I think that's the one.
I'm just going to scroll up and check. Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah, we should have a uplink message, and yeah, that's fine. That's what's posted typically on the webhook.
Let's do that then. And run. I do forget about this testing facility in Azure. I do forget about that sometimes. Geez, okay.
I was using it the other day. It's awesome.
It might be a different one. No, is it? Invalid twin specified. Yeah, that's so that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's because what the payload decoder is sending is it's sending more than what we put in the DTDL. I think we can quickly test if I'm right. If you go to the test run thing again, and I think yeah, it should still be there, the previous document. Yes. So let's clean up the part with the RH, etc., to make sure that it only has bat level, RH, and whatever we put. You see what I mean? So bat we want to keep. Bytes you remove. CO2 you remove. It might be that my Azure function is just too restricted. So IAQ we don't want. RH error I don't think we put either.
You don't want the VOC either, do you?
No.
Yeah, VOC. Yeah, let's double check. That's what we had in the DTL. So we only had 3.
Battery, relative humidity, and temperature, and then that metadata was coming from the thing. So let's have a look. Models. Brown. So yeah, we got bat. Temp board.
Temp board. RH.
RH. And that's it.
Okay. So let's see if that one wants to.
Is that right? What I've put in there for the model? Because that's what I've got for the context there. But it's this. No, it's not, isn't it?
No. The ID is at the top.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
So. Sorry.
No, yeah, no, go ahead. Just try it, and I think this time we should be good.
Hey. Oh.
Yeah, it worked, right? It's actually even telling us what it's replying with the twin. Interestingly, so that's you were asking earlier. How can we sort of manipulate the raw twins in the system? That's what we have here. Like we did call an API to create a new twin, and well, it created a new twin, and it's actually giving us like dumping the entire state of the twin in the system, including things like the e-tag and things like that, which can help later on if you want to do some caching in your own system. And so now if you go back to ADT Explorer and you refresh, it should be there. That's cool. That's good. Yeah, so the explanation is pretty simple at the end of the day, is that we just modeled something that's not exactly corresponding to what the sensor is sending. So that's at least in the current version of the function, it's failing pretty hard. Maybe it shouldn't, or maybe it should be more specific about why. But in the end, it makes sense. Like, it's better to have the thing tell you that there is an sort of an impedance mismatch between both environments. Otherwise, you may end up losing some attributes that you thought would have been passed around. So one way to, we could either fix the try and fix the code, or you can just update the payload decoder so that, and that's actually probably the right fix anyways, rather than having VOC and CO, etc. values showing up just because the way the manufacturer implemented things, they are sharing some code across different kind of sensors. Well, we can just like fix that. And in the nope,
Yep.
you were in the right place. Yes. Payload formatter, and then we do sort of a similar exercise.
Just get rid of all of this.
See?
Doesn't matter if it's processing it.
Yeah, just comment it out, or like. I think the editor is actually quite smart. You can select and then control / I think
I've done it now anyway. You're probably right. And that.
Ambient. And then find where we did put the bytes as well. Make sure that the bytes don't get added to the params, either at the top or at the bytes.
It must be, it's right down here, I think.
It's either could be.
It's a bit further up.
That's probably right at the top then.
Just a sec then.
Yep.
Bytes. It's that, isn't it?
Same. Just
get rid of it.
Yep. Just comment it out. And this time, so it's going to be the running gag. You can try and blow on the sensor again, or we just wait. But this time, at least, it should work for real, right? We don't need to use the trick where we did some one-off tests in the Azure Function Console. It should now just work. Interestingly, it did send data at 1 minute intervals. I think you need it might be that you need to blow on it, and then it's still at least a minute until it shows up.
Yeah, if you remember when we looked at it before, the humidity sensor, because it changed by more than 2%, it then triggered every minute why it went back to a stable situation.
Good, and there you go. And so now RH is 96. Oh, I caught that. I think. Let's double check.
Oh, there we are.
I think, And so if you go in the Digital Twins Explorer and refresh the query. So what did we have? We had 97 just before. Now 96.
How cool is that?
Or somewhere.
Our twin.
That's really cool.
Now, Benjamin, the Pete's temp sensor there appeared in the Digital Twins Explorer, but can we get it to have a relationship when it connects as well, so that we can have?
Yes, you can, but you would need to tell me what is. You need to have a way to figure out and to establish the relationship. Like, of course, calling the API that's going to create the relationship is no big deal, and that's like pretty easy. But we need to somewhere, either based on maybe the gateway the sensor connected to, or maybe because we're going to make a query against the Dynamics 365 graph, we have somewhere the information in a third-party system that this particular MAC address means that this is belonging to Pete, so we should like do the sort of the reverse engineering to do the to establish the that's another option, looking at the position. But and essentially you would end up either make the Azure function that we've been deploying, you would make this Azure function smarter, or actually probably better, at least in my opinion, you keep this particular Azure function pretty dumb, because this one, its role is really just bridging the LoRaWAN network to Twin, but then you end up, and Pete, you can show us in the Azure portal, if you look at the Azure Digital Twin section of the portal, yeah, there is outputs. There are connect outputs. And we could have an event route. We could be like, hey, whenever there is a new thingy happening in our entire graph, or maybe in a subset of our graph, could be like essentially whenever there is a new LoRaWAN sensor appearing in the system, let's trigger another Azure function whose role is going to be more specific. This time around, it's going to be in charge of establishing the relationship or trying to establish the relationship, or maybe sending a DM on Teams to a facility manager to tell them, hey, there is a new sensor, it needs action from you. Can you attach it to the proper room? Maybe it's going to trigger a chatbot. Maybe it's going to do, I mean, you get the idea, right? But of course it can be automated. In the context of the demo, I think the best option for Pete is going to use the ADT Explorer to establish the relationship, so that later on, when we want to write queries such as what are all the humidities in building Pete's office, then we will leverage the fact that there is now an established link and a path from the house to the sensor.
And there's a whole query language here that you can go and look at that's quite complicated in depth. It's very SQL-like. In fact, it almost says SQL, isn't it? But I don't think is it like a custo query rather than SQL, or?
It's probably a bit of both. I don't know exactly, but what matters is that the typical select, where, group by, order by is there. It might have like slight differences in terms of syntax, but for the kind of queries that you end up writing, it's usually just it's good enough, right? And that's what we use, and that's what I guess we keep for next week. For like those queries, you can perform them through either ADT Explorer or through via virtually like any of the SDKs for digital twins. We've been looking briefly at the Node.js SDK for writing the Azure function, but next week or next time we can look at using the Python API to see whether well, I mean, I'm not really a Python person, but it turns out that there are lots of software and actually like in industry software, usually like CAD software kind of stuff, that's often exposing some form of scripting API to allow virtually like any user to extend the system with their own scripts, plugins, and whatnot. And such a piece of software is Blender. Blender is a 3D modeling environment that has a really nice, really comprehensive API. Essentially, like everything you see in Blender for modeling, rendering, doing ray tracing, whatnot, like everything is accessible through the API. And so, like, we can essentially embed the ADT Python SDK within Blender to be like, hey, what if we could like in real time query the twins graph to retrieve the temperature of all the rooms in our system, and then use the data that we get from the query to update the state of our like 3D objects in our 3D model. And that's actually super easy to do. It's just like we had on hardly any code in the Azure function. We're going to have like just a dozen lines of code for doing just that in Blender.
We also use Unity and C# in Unity with the .NET core in Unity and do it that way as well.
And usually what's actually interesting is that Blender, just like Unity, just like virtually all those kind of frameworks, like by nature, they are very much object oriented. And digital twins, it's also all about objects, right? And so when you end up making your digital twins query you end up retrieving one or more twins plus their relationships, plus their potential hierarchy and their attributes and so on. And this is literally a one-to-one mapping to whatever 3D objects you have in your system. And so mapping the temperature value of your twins or of the twins of your sensors, mapping this temperature value to a color in of a 3D object in your 3D environment, it's just literally one line of code. You just do the you assign one to the other, and you're in business. And it goes both ways. You can also be like, hey, what if I move this particular or I interact with this switch on my 3D rendering or my 3D representation? Can I synchronize the state of the switch with the state of the twins switch? Sure. So that's pretty cool.
That's what I want to do. I've bought an Oculus Quest 2, and I know Cliff has also got one. And so one of my projects that I want to do is make a VR environment with exactly the sort of idea that Benjamin's just mentioned there, where I can synchronize stuff. Yeah. What I really want to do is move this robot arm you can barely see down here in VR. So I'd like to be able to move something in VR that actually moves that robot arm in the real world.
Real world objects.
Yeah, exactly. That's my plan anyway. So, but digital twins would potentially give you that, although it might be that you skip all of that and just use Signal R directly. But how much fun is that? I'm not sure.
The good thing is the fact that robot arm that we got on your GitHub that we built with the Microsoft team the other week is actually done in Blender, because that's where Macaulay designed it all. So we've already got the Blender file put together, so it'd be quite easy to edit it in Blender and move it in Blender to then move it in the real world, because we've already got the model there. You don't have to redraw it.
This one, in fact, in the 3D print. So yeah, I mean, this is what it opens up is the world of being able to model something and then change something in the model, and it affects the real world. But obviously the real world affects the model back that way, and then you can use that for predictive analytics with some AI and stuff like that as well. It's powerful stuff, and definitely something that I need to spend a bit more time looking at. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like it. So yeah, they're the bits of the 3D printed robot arm that Cliff was talking there about, the STLs. That's cool. Well, so yeah, next week, assuming we don't have any more disasters, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned that my virtual machine wouldn't let me log in this week, but then I hadn't used it in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I should have. So it's been a couple of times, like you've mentioned it a couple of times. It's happened to me as well, that sometimes the things stop being responsive. You can actually just restart the service. You log into the VM, the Ubuntu VM, and just restart the service, and that usually does the trick. And I should probably do something so that the daemon automatically detects when something like that happens, and it actually just restarts by itself. But yeah, you shouldn't need to recreate everything if that happens again.
Yeah, I just didn't know what to do, and I knew you were busy, so I didn't want to bother you too much with that. I'd just create it again. There was nothing in it. It was completely empty anyway, so it really made no odds to me. It did fail the first time I did it again. It complained about some conflict, but it worked the second time, so that's all good. So thank you very much indeed for everybody who came along and watched, and most certainly to Benjamin and to Cliff for working with me to get that set up. I'm hoping that you found it as useful as I did. It's fantastic to be able to get that endpoint now, where we're able to get real sensor readings from this sensor going through the gateway and up to the thing stack, and then out to an Azure function, and then back down to Azure Digital Twins. That's really cool to see that whole process working. And then next week we'll try and do a bit of Blender stuff. And get something like that working. I think you've already got some of that in the repo, haven't you, Benjamin?
Yeah, and maybe as an exercise for you, Pete, for next week, maybe you can also, and it should be pretty quick, like do the model for the motion sensor make sure that like the small tricks, like make sure that the payload decoder for the motion sensor is also like trimmed down to like only the attributes that are needed, so that eventually it ends up also being reported and sent synchronized as a twin, so that we have more meat for next week. Because like although I did have a humidity and temperature sensor in my initial demo, a motion sensor I didn't, and so maybe we can do some on-the-fly hacking of like trying to figure out how we want a motion to be visualized in 3D terms and do that live.
Cool. I
right?
like it. Excellent. Yeah, all right. So that will be same time, 2 p.m. GMT on the Azure-ish Live Twitch channel next Thursday. You'll still be able to catch me and Cliff, I believe, unless he's in flight, several thousand feet up in the air. I don't know. But on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. GMT, we should have our usual...
No, I'll be here.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's all right. Will you be in the country or will you be decidedly in America again?
I'll be in the UK. Yes, I get back on Monday from Dallas. So
Okay, that's cool.
yeah, I'll be here.
Plus or minus snow. But that's all gone now, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right then. So that'll be 9 p.m. GMT on the Azure-ish Live Twitch channel with me and Cliff. And then, next Thursday, which should probably be the last one with you, Benjamin, won't it? I'd imagine we'll be finishing up next week. And in fact, the week after that, assuming we do, I've got Paul DiCarlo on hold, and we're going to be looking at the NVIDIA Jetson and AI at the edge processing and spinning up some solutions with that. So that should be pretty cool as well. And in between then and now, Cliff needs to go and buy a Jetson Nano because it won't work on his full-fat Jetson. So that's just an excuse for you to go buy a Nano there, Cliff.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, excellent. So see you all again soon. Thanks very much.